Welcome to Sci-Fi Galactic Tales, your portal to thrilling adventures across the cosmos. Don't subscribe now. Listen to the complete story first, and if you love it, subscribe the channel and share with friends. Of course, hit the notification bell icon to get alerts for our next episodes and latest tales. The story begins with the wind howled across the barren red plains, carrying with it a fine dust that clung to everything it touched. The sky was a pale pink, streaked with thin clouds, and the sun hung low on the horizon, casting long shadows over the rocky terrain. In the distance, the jagged peaks of Olympus Mons pierced the sky, their tops lost in the haze. But the most striking feature of the landscape was the lone figure trudging through the dust. His name was Ethan Carter, and he was the last human on Mars. Ethan's spacesuit was worn and patched in places, the once bright white now faded to a dull gray. His helmet visor was scratched, and the oxygen gauge on his wrist beeped softly, a constant reminder of how little time he had left. He carried a heavy pack on his back, filled with tools and supplies, and in his hand he held a small device that blinked with a faint green light. "Come on, just a little further," Ethan muttered to himself, his voice crackling over the suit's comms. "You've made it this far. Don't give up now." The device in his hand was a life sign scanner, and it had been leading him across the Martian surface for days. Ethan didn't know what he was looking for, only that it was important. The scanner had picked up a signal, a faint, rhythmic pulse, coming from somewhere in the wasteland. It wasn't natural, and it wasn't human. Ethan had been alone on Mars for over a year, ever since the last evacuation ship had left without him. The colony had been abandoned after a catastrophic failure in the life support systems, and Ethan had been left behind, presumed dead. But he had survived, scavenging what he could from the ruins of the colony and venturing out into the wasteland in search of answers. Now, as he climbed a steep ridge, the scanner's blinking grew faster. Ethan's heart raced as he reached the top and looked down into the valley below. What he saw took his breath away. In the center of the valley was a massive structure, unlike anything he had ever seen. It was made of a dark, metallic material that seemed to absorb the light, and its surface was covered in intricate patterns that glowed faintly in the dim sunlight. The structure was circular, with a series of arches and towers that reached toward the sky. Ethan stared at it in awe. What is this?" The scanner in his hand beeped loudly, and the green light turned red. Something was moving inside the structure. Ethan hesitated for a moment, his mind racing. He had come this far, and there was no turning back now. He began his descent into the valley, his boots crunching against the rocky ground. As he got closer, the details of the structure became clearer. The glowing patterns on its surface seemed to shift and change, as if they were alive. The arches and towers loomed above him, casting long shadows that stretched across the valley floor. When he reached the base of the structure, Ethan paused. There was an opening, a large circular doorway that led into the darkness beyond. The scanner in his hand was now beeping constantly, the red light flashing rapidly. "Whatever's in there, it's close," Ethan muttered. He stepped through the doorway, his helmet lights cutting through the darkness. The interior of the structure was vast, with high ceilings and smooth walls that reflected the light. The air was cold, and the ground beneath his feet was covered in a fine layer of dust. As he moved deeper into the structure, Ethan noticed something strange. The walls were covered in more of the glowing patterns, but they seemed to be arranged in a specific way, almost like a language. He reached out to touch one of the patterns, and the glow intensified, spreading outward like ripples in water. "What the?" Ethan whispered, pulling his hand back. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the chamber. It was deep and resonant, and it seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Welcome, traveler." Ethan froze. "Who's there?" The voice didn't respond. Instead, the ground beneath his feet began to vibrate, and the walls of the chamber started to shift. The glowing patterns flared to life, illuminating the entire space. In the center of the chamber, a platform rose from the floor. On it stood a figure, tall and humanoid, but clearly not human. Its skin was a metallic silver, and its eyes glowed with a faint blue light. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. "Who, what are you?" The figure tilted its head, studying him. "I'm the guardian of this place," it said, its voice calm and measured. "And you, Ethan Carter, are the last hope of your kind." Ethan stared at the figure, his mind racing. The guardian's words echoed in his head. Asterisk, you are the last hope of your kind. Asterisk, his heart pounded, and his breath came in short, shallow gasps. The air inside the chamber felt colder now, and the glowing patterns on the walls pulsed faintly, as if reacting to his presence. "What do you mean?" Ethan asked, his voice trembling. "What is this place? Why am I here?" The guardian stepped down from the platform, its movements smooth and deliberate. Its metallic skin reflected the faint light, and its glowing blue eyes seemed to pierce through Ethan's helmet. "This is the Ark," it said, its voice calm but commanding. "A sanctuary built by an ancient civilization to preserve knowledge and life. It has waited here for millennia, dormant, until the time was right." Ethan shook his head, trying to make sense of what he was hearing. "But why me? I'm just a mechanic. I'm not some hero. I fix things. I don't save worlds." The guardian tilted its head, studying him. "You are here because you are the last human on Mars. The last chance for your species to survive." Ethan's breath caught in his throat. "Survive? What are you talking about?" The guardian raised a hand, and the walls of the chamber came alive. Holographic images flickered into existence, showing scenes of Earth, but not the Earth Ethan knew. This Earth was barren and lifeless, its oceans dried up, its cities reduced to rubble. The sky was choked with ash, and the sun was a dim, red orb. "Your world is dying," the guardian said, its voice heavy with sorrow. "A great catastrophe is coming, one that will wipe out all life on Earth. But there is hope. The Ark contains the knowledge and technology to save your species. And you, Ethan Carter, are the key to unlocking it." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. He stared at the images, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. How do you know this? How do you know about Earth?" The guardian's glowing eyes seemed to soften. "The Ark was built by a civilization that foresaw the end of their own world. They created this place to ensure that their knowledge would not be lost. They knew that one day, another species would come, one that would face the same fate. That species is yours." Ethan shook his head, his voice barely a whisper. "But what can I do? I'm just one person. I can't stop something like this." The guardian stepped closer, its metallic hand reaching out to him. "You must prove yourself worthy. Complete the trials, and the Ark will reveal its secrets. Fail, and all will be lost." Ethan hesitated, his mind racing. He had no idea what the trials would entail, but he knew one thing. He couldn't turn back now. He had come this far, and the fate of humanity, of Earth, rested in his hands. "All right," he said, taking a deep breath. "I'll do it." The guardian nodded, its glowing eyes fixed on him. "Then let the trials begin." The chamber around Ethan shifted, the glowing patterns on the walls swirling like liquid light. The ground beneath his feet trembled, and a series of platforms rose from the floor, forming a path that led deeper into the Arkansas. "The first trial tests your courage," the guardian said, its voice echoing through the chamber. "Follow the path, and do not falter." Ethan stepped onto the first platform, his boots clicking against the smooth surface. The platform was narrow, with a sheer drop on either side. Below, He could see nothing but darkness. "Great," he muttered. "Just what I needed, a test of balance." He took a deep breath and began to move forward one step at a time. The platforms were uneven, some tilting slightly as he stepped on them. The air was thick with tension, and Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. Halfway across, the platforms began to shift more violently, forcing Ethan to leap from one to the next. His muscles burned with effort, and his breath came in short, ragged gasps. But he didn't stop. He couldn't. Finally, he reached the last platform and jumped onto solid ground. He turned back to see the platforms retracting into the floor, the path disappearing as if it had never existed. "Well done," the Guardian said, appearing beside him. "You have passed the first trial." Ethan nodded, still catching his breath. "What's next?" The Guardian gestured to a doorway that had opened in the wall. "The second trial awaits." Ethan stepped through the doorway, his boots clicking against the smooth floor of the next chamber. The room was smaller than the last, with walls covered in the same glowing patterns he had seen before. In the center of the room was a pedestal, and on it rested a strange device, a sphere made of interlocking rings, each one glowing with a different color. "The second trial tests your intellect." The Guardian's voice echoed through the chamber. "Solve the puzzle, and the path will open." Ethan approached the pedestal, his eyes fixed on the sphere. The rings were covered in symbols that matched the ones on the walls. He reached out and touched one of the rings, and it rotated with a soft click. "All right," he said, his mind racing. "This is just a puzzle. I can do this." He began to rotate the rings, aligning the symbols in different combinations. Each time he got close, the sphere would glow brighter, but it wasn't enough. He tried again and again, his frustration growing with each failed attempt. "Come on," he muttered, his voice tense. "There's got to be a pattern here." The Guardian's voice echoed in the chamber once more. "Time is running out, Ethan Carter. Solve the puzzle, or the trial will end in failure." Ethan's heart raced. He didn't know what would happen if he failed, but he wasn't about to find out. He took a deep breath and focused on the symbols, trying to see the pattern. Finally, after what felt like hours, he found the right combination. The symbols aligned perfectly, and the sphere lit up with a brilliant light. The walls of the chamber shifted, revealing a new doorway. "You have passed the second trial," the Guardian said. "But the final trial will be the most difficult." Ethan nodded, his determination growing. "Bring it on." He stepped through the doorway and into the final chamber. The room was vast, with a high ceiling and walls that seemed to stretch on forever. In the center of the room was a massive machine, its surface covered in glowing patterns and intricate mechanisms. "The final trial tests your resolve," the Guardian said. "You must activate the machine and prove your worth." Ethan approached the machine, his eyes scanning its surface. There are no obvious controls, just more of the glowing symbols. He reached out and touched one, and the machine hummed to life. Suddenly, the room was filled with holographic images, scenes of Earth's destruction, of cities crumbling and oceans boiling away. The images were accompanied by a voice, deep and resonant, speaking in a language Ethan didn't understand. "What is this?" he asked, his voice trembling. "This is the truth," the Guardian said. "The catastrophe that will destroy your world. You must face it and accept it before you can move forward." Ethan felt a wave of despair wash over him. The images were overwhelming, the scale of destruction unimaginable. But he couldn't look away. I can't," he whispered. "You must," the Guardian said. "Only by facing the truth can you hope to change it." Ethan took a deep breath, forcing himself to watch. The images continued, each one more devastating than the last. But as he watched, he felt something shift inside him, a spark of determination, of hope. "No," he said, his voice firm. "I won't let this happen. I'll find a way to stop it." The machine's hum grew louder, and the images faded away. The Guardian stepped forward, its glowing eyes fixed on Ethan. "You have passed the final trial," it said. "The Ark is yours to command." The chamber around Ethan shifted once more, the walls parting to reveal a vast, glowing core. In the center of the core was a console covered in more of the glowing symbols he had seen throughout the Arkansas. The air was thick with energy, and the hum of the machine filled the room. "This is the heart of the Ark," the Guardian said, its voice echoing through the chamber. "Here, you will find the knowledge and technology to save your species." Ethan approached the console, his hands trembling as he reached out to touch it. The symbols lit up at his touch, and a holographic interface appeared before him. The interface was complex, with layers of data and images floating in the air. "What do I do?" Ethan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "The Ark will guide you," the Guardian replied. "But remember, the power to change the future lies within you." Ethan nodded, his mind racing. He had no idea what he was doing, but he knew one thing. He couldn't give up. He began to explore the interface, his fingers moving over the glowing symbols. The holographic images shifted, showing schematics of advanced technology, machines that could purify water, generate energy, and even terraform planets. This is incredible," Ethan said, his voice filled with awe. "With this technology, we could rebuild Earth. We could save it." The Guardian stepped closer, its glowing eyes fixed on him. "The Ark contains the knowledge of a civilization that faced extinction. They built this place to ensure that their legacy would not be lost. But knowledge alone is not enough. It must be used wisely." Ethan frowned, his mind racing. "But how do I get this technology to Earth? I'm stuck here on Mars. The colony is gone. The ships are gone. I'm alone." The Guardian tilted its head, studying him. "You're not alone, Ethan Carter. The Ark is more than a repository of knowledge. It is a vessel capable of traveling between worlds." Ethan's eyes widened. "You mean this thing can fly?" The Guardian nodded. "The Ark was designed to carry its knowledge to those who need it. But it requires a pilot, someone with the courage and determination to see the mission through." Ethan stared at the console, his mind racing. The idea of piloting the Ark was overwhelming, but he knew he had no choice. The fate of humanity rested in his hands. "All right," he said, taking a deep breath. "Tell me what I need to do." The Guardian gestured to the console. "The Ark will guide you. But first, you must activate the core." Ethan nodded and began to work, his fingers moving over the symbols. The console responded to his touch, the holographic images shifting and changing. The core of the Ark began to glow brighter, and the hum of the machine grew louder. Suddenly, the chamber was filled with light, and the walls began to shift. The Ark was coming to life, its systems activating one by one. Ethan felt a surge of energy, and the console in front of him lit up with a brilliant light. "The Ark is ready," the Guardian said, "but the journey will not be easy. You must be prepared for what lies ahead." Ethan nodded, his determination growing. "I'm ready. Whatever it takes, I'll do it." The Guardian stepped back, its glowing eyes fixed on him. "Then let the journey begin." The Ark's engines roared to life, and the chamber around Ethan began to shake. The wall shifted, revealing a massive window that looked out into space. The stars outside were bright and clear, and the red surface of Mars stretched out below. Ethan took a deep breath and stepped up to the console. The Ark was his now, and the fate of humanity rested in his hands. The Ark's engines roared to life, shaking the chamber with a deep, resonant hum. Ethan gripped the console tightly, his heart pounding as the massive structure began to move. Through the newly revealed window, he watched as the red surface of Mars grew smaller and smaller, the stars becoming brighter as the Ark ascended into space. "This is really happening," Ethan muttered to himself, his voice trembling with a mix of awe and fear. "I'm actually flying this thing." The Guardian's voice echoed through the chamber, calm and steady. "The Ark is now under your control, Ethan Carter. But the journey to Earth will not be without challenges. You must remain focused." Ethan nodded, his eyes fixed on the holographic interface in front of him. The console displayed a map of the solar system, with a glowing line tracing the path from Mars to Earth. "How long will it take to get there?" he asked. "At the Ark's current speed, the journey will take approximately 3 Earth days," the Guardian replied. "But time is not your only concern. The Ark's systems are ancient, and they require careful monitoring." Ethan frowned, his fingers moving over the symbols on the console. "Great. So not only do I have to fly this thing, but I also have to keep it from falling apart." The Guardian's glowing eyes seemed to soften. "You are not alone, Ethan. The Ark will assist you, and I will guide you as best I can. But the responsibility is yours." Ethan took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. "All right, let's do this." For the next several hours, Ethan worked tirelessly, familiarizing himself with the Ark systems. The holographic interface was complex, but he quickly learned to navigate it, pulling up schematics and status reports. The Ark's engines were stable, and the life support systems were functioning perfectly. But as he delved deeper into the console, he noticed something strange, a series of warnings flashing in the corner of the interface. "What's this?" Ethan asked, his voice tense. "Why are there warnings?" The Guardian stepped closer, its metallic hand gesturing toward the console. "The Ark's energy core is unstable. It was designed to last for millennia, but the activation process has put a strain on its systems. If the core fails, the Ark will lose power and the mission will fail." Ethan's heart raced. "How do I fix it?" "You must stabilize the core," the Guardian replied. "But the process is dangerous. The core is highly sensitive, and any mistake could result in catastrophic failure." Ethan clenched his fists, his mind racing. "All right, show me what to do." The Guardian guided him through the process, its voice calm and steady. Ethan followed its instructions carefully, his hands moving over the console with precision. The warnings grew more frequent, and the hum of the Ark's engines became louder, more erratic. "You're almost there," the Guardian said. "But you must hurry." Ethan's fingers flew over the symbols, his heart pounding in his chest. Sweat dripped down his forehead, and his breath came in short, ragged gasps. Finally, with a final touch, the warnings disappeared and the hum of the engine steadied. "It's done," Ethan said, his voice filled with relief. "The core is stable." The Guardian nodded, its glowing eyes fixed on him. "Well done, Ethan Carter. You have proven yourself once again." Ethan slumped against the console, his legs trembling with exhaustion. "I don't know how much more of this I can take," he muttered. The Guardian's voice was soft, almost gentle. "You are stronger than you realize, Ethan. The journey ahead will be difficult, but you have the strength to see it through." Ethan nodded, his determination growing. "I'll do whatever it takes. For Earth. For everyone." The Ark continued its journey through space, the stars outside the window shining brightly. Ethan stared out at the vast expanse, his mind filled with thoughts of what lay ahead. The fate of humanity rested in his hands, and he was ready to face whatever challenges came his way. The Ark glided silently through the vastness of space, its engines humming steadily as it carried Ethan closer to Earth. The journey had been long and exhausting, but Ethan had managed to keep the ancient vessel stable. Now, as the blue-green orb of Earth came into view, he felt a mix of relief and anxiety. "We're almost there," Ethan said, his voice tinged with both excitement and fear. "Just a few more hours." The Guardian's voice echoed through the chamber, calm and steady as always. The final approach will be the most critical. Earth's atmosphere is unpredictable, and the Ark's systems must be carefully monitored. Ethan nodded, his eyes fixed on the holographic interface in front of him. The console displayed a detailed map of Earth, with a glowing line tracing the Ark's descent path. "I'll keep an eye on everything," he said. "But what happens when we get there? How do I even begin to use this technology to save Earth?" The Guardian stepped closer, its metallic hand gesturing toward the console. "The Ark contains everything you need: machines to purify the air and water, devices to restore the soil, and energy systems to power the rebuilding process. But the people of Earth must be willing to accept this help. You must convince them." Ethan frowned, his mind racing. "Convince them? How am I supposed to do that? I'm just one person. They're not going to listen to me." The Guardian's glowing eyes seemed to soften. "You are more than just one person, Ethan. You're the last hope of your kind. The Ark chose you for a reason. You have the strength and determination to see this through." Ethan took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. "All right, I'll do my best, but I'm going to need some help." As the Ark entered Earth's atmosphere, the chamber shook violently, and the hum of the engines grew louder. Ethan gripped the console tightly, his heart pounding as the temperature outside rose dramatically. The holographic interface flashed with warnings, and the Guardian's voice echoed through the chamber. "The Ark's shields are holding, but the descent is putting a strain on the systems. You must maintain control." Ethan's fingers flew over the symbols on the console, his eyes darting between the warnings and the map. "I'm trying, but this thing wasn't exactly built for re-entry." The Ark shook again, and the lights in the chamber flickered. Ethan's heart raced as he struggled to keep the vessel stable. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the shaking stopped, and the Ark leveled out. "We're through," Ethan said, his voice filled with relief. "Now, where do we land?" The Guardian gestured to the map. "The Ark's sensors have detected a suitable location, a region where the damage is severe but not beyond repair. It is also near a population center where you can begin your work." Ethan nodded, his determination growing. "All right, let's do this." The Ark descended slowly, its massive form casting a shadow over the barren landscape below. The ground was cracked and dry, and the air was thick with dust. As the Ark touched down, the chamber was filled with a deep, resonant hum. Ethan stepped away from the console, his legs trembling with exhaustion. "We made it," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The Guardian nodded, its glowing eyes fixed on him. "The journey is far from over, Ethan, but you have taken the first step. The fate of humanity rests in your hands." Ethan took a deep breath, his mind filled with thoughts of what lay ahead. The people of Earth would need to see the Ark's technology in action, and they would need to believe in him. It was a daunting task, but he was ready to face it. The Ark's massive doors groaned as they slowly opened, revealing the barren, dust-choked landscape of Earth. Ethan stepped out, his boots crunching against the cracked ground. The air was thick with ash, and the sky was a dull, lifeless gray. He adjusted his helmet, the suit's oxygen system hissing softly as it filtered the toxic air. This is worse than I imagined," Ethan said, his voice heavy with despair. "How are we supposed to fix this?" The Guardian's voice echoed in his helmet, calm and steady. "The Ark's technology is powerful, but it will take time. You must start small, restore one area, and the rest will follow." Ethan nodded, his eyes scanning the horizon. In the distance, he could see the faint outline of a city, its skyscrapers crumbling and covered in dust. "That's where we need to go," he said. "If there are any survivors, they'll be there." He returned to the Ark and activated one of its smaller machines, a rover-like device designed to carry supplies and equipment. The machine hummed to life, its wheels rolling smoothly over the rough terrain. Ethan loaded it with tools, water purifiers, and a small generator, then set off toward the city. As he approached the outskirts, he noticed signs of life, tattered tents, makeshift shelters, and the faint glow of fires. People emerged from the shadows, their faces gaunt and their eyes filled with fear. They stared at Ethan and the strange machine, their expressions a mix of curiosity and suspicion. "Who are you?" a man called out, his voice hoarse and weak. "Where did you come from?" Ethan raised his hands, trying to appear non-threatening. "My name is Ethan Carter. I'm here to help. I have technology that can purify water, generate energy, and restore the soil. But I need your help to make it work." The people exchanged uneasy glances, their distrust evident. "Why should we trust you?" a woman asked, her arms crossed. "We've been abandoned before. Why are you any different?" Ethan took a deep breath, his mind racing. "I know you've been through a lot. I've seen it too. But I'm not here to make promises I can't keep. I'm here to give you a chance, a real chance to rebuild. But I can't do it alone. I need your help." The crowd murmured among themselves, their expressions softening. Finally, the man who had spoken earlier stepped forward. "All right, we'll give you a chance. But if this is some kind of trick, it's not," Ethan said, his voice firm. "I'm here to help. That's all." Over the next few days, Ethan worked tirelessly alongside the survivors. He showed them how to use the Ark's technology, purifying water from a nearby river and setting up the generator to provide power. The soil restoration devices were planted in the ground, their faint hum a promise of new life. As the days turned into weeks, the changes became visible. The air grew cleaner, the water clearer, and the first green shoots began to emerge from the soil. The people's skepticism turned to hope, and they began to work together, rebuilding their homes and their lives. One evening, as the sun set over the newly restored fields, Ethan stood with the Guardian, watching the people gather around a bonfire. Their laughter and music filled the air, a sound he hadn't heard in far too long. "You've done well, Ethan Carter," the Guardian said, its voice filled with pride. "You have given them hope." Ethan smiled, his heart swelling with a sense of accomplishment. "We've done well, but there's still so much to do. This is just the beginning." The Guardian nodded, its glowing eyes fixed on the horizon. "The journey ahead will be long and difficult, but you have proven that you have the strength to see it through." Ethan took a deep breath, his mind filled with thoughts of the future. The road ahead would be challenging, but he was ready to face it. Together with the people of Earth, he would rebuild their world, one step at a time. If you enjoyed The Last Human on Mars and want to read more thrilling sci-fi adventures, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Dive into epic battles, explore distant galaxies, and join brave heroes as they fight for survival against impossible odds. Don't miss out on the next chapter of humanity's struggle. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and become part of the journey. Together, we'll keep the last light burning. Subscribe now and let the adventure continue.